everyone. Very good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, wherever you're watching this session from. We'll be starting the session now. Please allow me a minute so I can share my screen and we can start with today's session. And meanwhile, please drop your locations where you're watching this session from. We would love to know. We would love to know your location, and it's good to see how global audience is joining us. And here we go. I hope you all can see my screen here. And I would love to give you all a very warm welcome to world's leading AI adoption virtual conference, where we'll be learning a different stages of AI from AI experimentation to enterprise scale execution, build an agentic workforce that delivers measurable impact. So what makes it more exciting as we do have this incredible panel of AI experts who will be joining us around the globe. So this is happening on every Wednesday, which is started from 15th April till 30th May 2026. As a part of our AI Adoption Virtual Summit, our goal is to give you a complete overview, practical view of how organizations are adapting AI end to end. That's why we have designed this series around key points where we'll be taking the session under value, deploy, orchestrate, upskill, and govern. We kicked off with the things with value last Wednesday, which is on 15th April, where we explored how organizations identify the right AI opportunity and align that business impact. It turned out to be extremely insightful, and we saw an amazing engagement across all our social platforms. So thank you everyone for that, because we'll be having the live session, live streaming across all our social media platform as well on YouTube and LinkedIn. And before we could start with the session, I would love to introduce our hosting organization to those who have joined us for the first time. We known as Global Skill Development Council. We're vendor agnostic, vendor neutral. We're globally recognized certification body. Also, we do have 100 plus authorized training partner with us. So a big thanks to all our training partners and those who have joined us through our training partner channel. In case if you have any training partner related queries, feel free to reach out to our training partners to have an inquiry about it. You will find all the contact details in the chat box. And also, we are accredited by ABICB and supported by World Press Hub, which is our official media partner. They cover all our events and press releases. And I'm also very proud to inform you all that we do have 100 plus certification portfolio with us, and we have certified more than 250,000 professionals worldwide. Also, we have 1,000 plus multinational corporates in association with us, 500 Fortune companies, 50 plus universities across the world. And this is a quick introduction to our certification portfolio. I would like to inform you all, we do have certification portfolio majorly on learning and development, HR, generative AI, agentic AI, emerging technologies, ISO lead, auditor and implementer, project management, PMO, agile DevOps, SREs, cybersecurity, digital transformation, and so on. So in case if you're looking for any of these certification, feel free to reach out to our learning advisors, or you can explore our website, which is www.gsdcouncil.org. So all this certification portfolio is specifically designed for our professionals out there who are looking to upskill themselves or who are looking to stay industry relevant in this AI era. So get in touch with a learning advisor to understand more about all the certification program and the benefits that we have about it. So now, building that momentum, today we move into deploy. This is where the idea turns into reality, where AI moves beyond pilots and into production. We'll be diving into what it really takes to scale AI in enterprise environments and what actually works in the real world. Now let's meet our global leaders who are making this happen, joining us from across the world. Let's meet Ahmed Muzammil. He's joining us from Singapore. Ahmed represents Bank of Singapore as a vice president, data science and advanced analytics with over 15 years of experience. He brings a sharp ability to translate complex data into meaningful business outcomes, unlocking real AI value while keeping the human element at the core. Let's meet Sim Singh, our another panelist. He's joining us from Canada. He's a data and AI engineer at BMO with more than 2 decades of experience. He's at forefront of prioritizing Gen AI, turning cutting-edge innovation into scalable enterprise-grade solutions. Let's meet Anupam Korea. She is a director at KPMG UK and global transformation leader. She brings deep expertise in AI and platform engineering, driving large-scale innovation that is both scalable and sustainable across regions. Let's meet Inbar Rose, our another panelist, who will be joining us from Las Vegas, United States. Inbar is a director of AI reliability at Lenovo. He focuses on critical yet often overlooked area, ensuring AI systems are reliable, secure, and truly enterprise ready at scale. Let's meet Laura Scavino. She's joining us from UK. Laura is an AI director at Entity Data, specializing in agentic AI and enterprise innovation. She works at intersection of business and technology, helping organizations turn AI ambience into measurable outcomes. And now let's meet our moderator from Singapore. She will be guiding this global conversation, Aim Susangala, and bringing over a decade of experience in workforce transformation and strategic partnership at GSDC, driving impactful dialogues, the shape future of AI adoption. From the lessons to strategies that actually works, this panel is all about real experiences, genuine insights, and actionable takeaways. Let's dive in and explore it truly takes to move AI pilots to production. Over to you, Asang. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Preetham, for that introduction. And also thank you everyone for joining for another session of our AI adoption virtual panel discussion. I think last week we had a great session where we discussed on the value topic, how do you measure AI in your enterprises and what is the ROI, right? We had wonderful 5 panelists. In fact, it was all women-led and it was very, very interesting. So I'm looking forward to what's what the panel discussion is gonna look like. Like, Preetham also said, this is going to be about how you are deploying AI within your enterprises. So we have segmented this panel discussion into 5 rounds. Each round is equally important, so I request all of our viewers to, sit back, relax, and hear from our experienced AI leaders here, and this is going to be very interesting. I will also make sure we are engaging with all of you, so we will be pulling up polls to understand your views during each round. And of course, after the panel discussion is done, we will also be taking any questions you have for our AI leaders present today. So yes, we will begin with our first round. Here we will, discuss about why pilots stall before reaching production. We've all seen the AI graveyard, right? Brilliant pilots that work perfectly in testing, and then what happens? It disappears. So there's no production launch, no scale up, no ROI, just a presentation that probably says lessons learned. So round one is all about understanding why that keeps happening, and our panelists have been close enough to that problem, I suppose, to give us real answers, right? So like I had already mentioned, we will be running a poll. So Preetham, let's pull out a first poll of the day to understand from the viewers here, how far has your organization gotten with AI deployment? I'd be witnessing some interesting views from your end, and this can help us drive the first round with our panelists here. So your options are, we are running pilots, nothing in production yet. We have 1 or 2 AI systems live. We have multiple AI deployments running in production. AI is embedded across the enterprise at scale. I think we can pull the screen up for 30 seconds. And let's see what we will have at the end of the polls. Yes, let's share the results here. So 67% of you are still in pilot mode, right? So which is precisely the problem, our panelists are here to help solve. So maybe let's go straight to Ahmed. You know, you've built frameworks specifically for helping organizations scale without getting, overwhelmed. So my question to you, Ahmed, today is, uh, we've all seen AI pilots that worked brilliantly in testing but never made it to production. Very important question to start this round. Can you share an example and what you think could have, went wrong, gone wrong? Yes.
Yeah, so this is not this is a problem everywhere, right? Like we all got excited about AI when ChatGPT came about, and we started thinking of something that we can build to leverage on this new platform or new tool or new solution, and we all started experimenting with it. And then we stayed experimenting, right? We never went to production. And what I've observed is that most of the time, the experiments don't become productionized. It's because there is no, it's not integrated into your workflows, right? We all have workflows in every single company. There is operations, there is compliance. For example, in banking, um, these experiments, if they are not embedded into your workflows, they don't make it to production because it doesn't prove the value of having such a solution, right? If it is embedded, then it will be useful and it has to be used, and that's when it goes to production on an accelerated timeline, right? So an example is that of a project that we went into production is we have something called the Source of Wealth Assistant in Bank of Singapore. So we productionized it. It is because it saves a lot of time for our compliance analysts to prepare the source of wealth documentation and so on and so forth, right? So that was embedded into the onboarding workflow. That's how it survived. Projects that failed, it never made to. We were never made aware of it because they just sit in people's laptops and whatnot, right? So only way to go to production is to make it useful in a workflow in a company. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Ahmed. I think that's a pattern we often hear repeatedly, right? And what strikes me, even with your experience, what you've shared, it has been consistent, across industries. So thank you, Ahmed, for that. Anupam, from your consulting work across some of Europe's biggest institutions, when AI projects fail to go live, is it usually a technology problem or a people and process problem? What's been your experience here?
Mm, This is a very sharp question we often get even from our clients. And and in my experience, it's almost always, unfortunately, it's people and processes. And I must never use the word never, but in this case, I would say it's never usually technology. And the reason is that technology rarely fails in isolation. It is the gap of how and what the technology can do versus the organization readiness to be able to implement and design those solutions. And this gap actually decides the success and the failure of any AI project. And if I have to give you three key takeaways for today, that why the top three key reasons, there may be multiple ones based on the ecosystem and particular client environment. But the three key takeaways, which I've seen as a theme and a pattern coming along for the last 4 or 5 years that I've seen, is the first one is really about the ROI imbalance. When in AI pilots, when you're not able to prove the value, very quickly you lose your business sponsors, your investment, and hence you're not able to scale it because you have to just stall the program and it is dead in waters. And that one of the reasons is also because sometimes it is very quick for people to just think that it is because of choosing a wrong use case. It's not really about the use case because people know that which exactly use case to invest in. But unfortunately, to Ahmed's point earlier, which is that unless you actually redesign your workflow and your journey, and if you are trying to bolt this AI solution on top of an existing workflow that you have or existing use case that you have, you will not be able to get the full benefits of the business impact. So there is the first thing is really about the ROI imbalance. The second thing is really about the architectural design and data issues. Your AI outcomes will be as good as your data quality. And because in pilot, when you're doing the pilot, your data quality is simpler to manage because you're working with a very curated subset of a data, it's easier to prove that pilot works. But moment you have to scale it and you have to come to the real world problems, you are not able to take it to the enterprise level scale, and hence you fail. The architecture decision goes the same way, because if you've not built it for production readiness and enterprise grade, you will not be able to scale, and hence your AI project gets stalled. And the third and the last point is really about, and which is a big one, is the, as I said, it is the organizational readiness. Uh, Unlike other technologies, which do just get added to your tech stack, AI is very different. AI here is to transform your business, which means you need an AI engineered operating model which can complement your AI solutions. Unless you have fixed your governance, your people, your workforce skill issues, your operations, you will not be really able to scale any AI project further than pilot. So these are the key three ones which I feel are very important to fix.
Great. I think that's a really clear-eyed diagnosis out there, Anupam. And I think the audience, will recognize a split from your from their own experience. Sim, in your view, in a $200 million plus banking transformation, you don't get to blame the process, right? So just wanted to know your honest take here as well. Data quality comes up in every AI conversation. Have you ever deployed AI successfully despite imperfect data? What was your approach here?
Yeah, absolutely. Firstly, thank you for having me. And I kind of echo with what Anupam mentioned earlier. It's always the people and the processes and never the technology, because the technology is built in a way to solve your problems. Coming back to your question, data, as we know, is always a fundamental problem without even being said across every enterprise. So if any organization says our data is perfect, that is not true. So sorting out the data problem is a challenge that every enterprise is today going through. And now with the pressure of investors, you also need to overlay the AI demand itself to get more and more benefits. So my approach has always been to spend a lot of time in analysis, because even when I started my journey into AI, I spent a lot of time in data fundamentals. I'd like to keep everything very simple. My approach has always been stick to fundamentals and stay simple. Do not get too emotional about tools, because tools keep changing, right? So the approach should be build your data catalog first, try to map their relationships across multiple schemas, and then try to adopt a feature engineering approach as a core skill before you even provide your data to your pipeline feeding the AI model. This is non-negotiable. Whether you bring the AI model to the data or data to the AI model, in both cases, capturing the metadata is non-negotiable. And if you can find ways to achieve this during your experimentation, it will show far better results than having skewed data. So once you have achieved that, that's when you start leveraging your data based on patterns, and then you determine whether AI is even the right solution to solve a problem. Because today, if you look at the shift that has happened in terms of Gen AI, these are transformer-based models, which are autoregressive models, which are token predictors, right? Which lack the ability to think deeply. The thinking mode that you use today on ChatGPT or Claude is nothing but sending your context that you send to the model through much more deeper nodes or hidden nodes. If you've ever looked at a neural network, YouTube video or an image, and then capture more and more information. But you should always look at whether your problem can be solved by using a deterministic logic that can scale or can flex, right? You don't need to use AI for everything. If a rule-based system solves it, use it. If it's auditable, explainable, predictable, I would definitely use a deterministic pipeline over AI. So that's been my approach in terms of solving any data problem, from getting it to the right catalog, to my pipeline, to figuring out what are the outliers outside my prototype, and then seeing how I push it to production.
Great. Very valuable here, Sim. I already saw some hearts popping up, and the participants are enjoying this. Of course, it's most practical concept that you have shared today. Inbar, from a reliability perspective, right? How do you think about data quality as a deployment risk? So just stitching your question along with that, how do you decide which AI project deserves the investment to move from pilot to full production? What's your prioritization process here?
Thank you. So to echo something that Sim just mentioned, not every solution needs AI. That's one of the first things you look at. Is this over-engineering using AI? You could propose a calculator that uses AI. That's probably not the best use of an AI solution. So one of the things we would look at is, can this actually be operated in a production scaled environment? Can it be supported? Who's going to own it? Is there an authority that's going to be responsible when the model changes, when data drifts? Most people bringing AI experimentation that want to bring that to production don't have answers to that. They just see a AI black box and they throw their business needs into that black box and say, hey, I've solved a problem. And then you say, okay, well, what happens when the model changes? What happens when your data changes? Who's going to operate it? What happens when it fails? And they don't have answers for this. So the projects that will get the investment are the ones that actually approach it like a software engineering problem, where AI is not seen as just a black box solution that'll solve every problem in the universe, but AI is specifically used for a certain use case. AI is extremely good at things like understanding human intent and interpreting that and converting that into machine language. So, for example, we have chatbots. That's a very popular use case for AI, where a human can speak to an AI, and then that can be turned into specific actions that a system can then understand. That's why we see that I think one of the biggest proliferation of AI right now is chatbots. That's why the biggest use case most people have ever used for AI is talking to ChatGPT. Being able to understand human intent and then convert that into logic behind the scenes is probably the best use case for AI. Using AI to just throw data that's unstructured and unknown and ask it, give me some information. If you don't know how to structure your data, you don't know how to ask the right question, you don't know how to develop a system around that, AI is not going to solve your problem. So we look at this from a perspective of, have you considered this as a software solution, as an entire system, or have you just looked at this as a magical solution to your problem? Do you have the idea of how you're going to scale this, how you're going to support this 2 years from now when models change? Most solutions are just trying to wrap ChatGPT and not thinking about anything beyond that. I could go on about all these problems, but the biggest issue that I see from a reliability perspective, again, is, are you able to support and operate this reliably at scale? And usually the answer is no.
Great. I think a lot of people in this room could, from what you have said, could take back and use immediately that the idea that not every pilot deserves to graduate, right? So, Laura, from a go-to-market and strategy perspective, how do you make that call with clients, right? What's one deployment lesson you wish someone had told you before your first production AI system? Yes.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, first of all, for having me. So, building on what Invar was saying, the hardest part in building AI system into production is not about the model. So the hardest part is not building a model, it's not building the application, it's about the data. Do you have the right data? Do you have everything in place? Is the data actually usable? And then second, do you have the context? Is the AI systems, is agentic AI able to pick up the context, which is not just data, it's not just the reasoning, it's all this piece of information that comes from the enterprise logs, the reasoning between agents. Now we're moving into more autonomous agents. Are we able to pick those contexts and bring it into the AI systems? And third, which is where most systems fail, is adoption. So I think one of our panelists earlier mentioned without adoption, you don't have any AI, right? Because we have a mixture of technology and people. Now, if you go into production without these three elements of data, context, and adoption, you're already setting up yourself for failure, or you're not setting up yourself for the best success that you could get within an AI implementation. So it's all about defining the value, but also the success metrics up front. So without having those success metrics, without thinking about the value that you could get from an AI system, you'll struggle to scale. You can still create a POC, you can still create a proof of concept and showing that the model works, you have the right data. But if you don't bring together data, context, adoption, and your success metrics, you'll struggle to create a scalable solution. So as soon as you go into production, so in your day two, I would say, you'll start monitoring, you'll start seeing how is the adoption behaving, how is the data pulling in. You also need to look at the governance. So everything within the AI governance space is becoming more and more important, is showing, as Inba was saying, is not just AI being a black box, is actually seeing the audit trail, seeing what AI is doing, all the single steps. So we are able to say we have a governance in place. It's not AI told me to do this, but I can trust AI and we will get adoption off the back of it. So it's a mixture of monitoring, getting the right governance in place, and building the right trust in organizations. Because at the end of the day, it's about creating a product, a tool, a technology that the human can use to make their work more meaningful. And we're not just about creating some productivity gains, but we are actually trying to grow and improve the way that we're working. So loads of lessons learned, especially in the early days of AI adoption over the last couple of years. Now we understand how the human element is more interlaced with the technology element for sure.
Great, thanks, Laura, out there. So this was like a great close to the first round, right? We've all heard about from each of the panelists here. So we'll quickly move on into the engine room, the infrastructure decision that make or break production at scale, right? So like I was mentioning, we will keep doing polls for each round. So let's hear it from the audience here as well. Second poll, Peter, if you can just pull it up. Great. So now we'd like to understand from the viewers here, what's been your biggest barrier to scaling AI infrastructure? Has it been cost? It gets too expensive too quickly, data quality and data pipeline issues, cloud versus on-prem decisions we haven't resolved, or is it legacy systems that AI can't easily plug into? Let's see what's causing the most infrastructure pain in this room right now. So be honest and you can vote. I think we are good to share the results. It's very clear. And I think it was also very evident that it would be legacy systems that AI can't easily plug into. So our panelists have each, made major infrastructure bets, I believe, some of which paid off and some of which probably didn't. So I'll open this first round with Sim. You've made some of the biggest infrastructure calls in Canadian banking. So without getting too technical, what does your setup look like for running AI in production? And what were the key choices you had to make?
Yeah, sure. I think every organization believes in having their own setup, from hosting a model to storing data and then overlaying the governance strategy as a de factor to their preference. Um, my ideal setup in an enterprise world would be to first build the scaffolding, having the platform as a product mindset, um, and then use shared assets as capabilities in the form of your API contracts, your model gateways, your model registry, logging every single call to models, your data flows, encryption for data at rest and in transit, um, with running your model either locally or on-prem. It could be a fine-tuned model based on your organization's documents. If it's a bank, you have a lot of policy documents, you have a lot of information that customers would like to learn from you. So a lot of customer experience-based solutions in terms of RAG solutions are the go-to things that organizations and enterprises are willing to experiment and put in production as the very first solution. And then if they don't change, then you could also use a cloud hosted model behind a proxy server for rate limiting token consumption and cost derivation. Why I'm talking about all these is because in an enterprise, these are solely needed because you fall into the realms of regulation. So given I'm from Canada, there are regulatory bodies like OSFI and FinTrack, which need every call that you make to a large language model for an AI solution to be logged in terms of a regulatory project, and that is non-negotiable. So if these choices are made, I would say this is an ideal setup for running any project using a very standard platform to run faster, leaner, cleaner, with auditability and logging in a very regulatory environment. Otherwise, you are just bracing for problems. You will struggle in terms of fines. You will struggle in terms of customer data going out to the public, and that is the last thing you want to do. 30 seconds, again, choices that you have to make. Local AI model inferencing generates faster and quicker results if it's a much more packed environment in your local infrastructure. So local AI inferencing always wins on summarization, document classification, clause extraction, redaction, compliance flagging, internal policy Q&A. Cloud AI inferencing wins on heavy reasoning and decomposing ambiguous problems, multi-step logic, and even cross-domain synthesis. If you want latency and privacy, where regulatory audit matters, you have to choose local AI. If you need more cognitive depth and scale, I think cloud AI wins. But everything has to be locked down through a model registry and a model gateway. That's what my ideal setup would be from a platform perspective, which is non-negotiable. Hope that helps.
Right. Thanks, Sim. I think, really wonderfully shared opinions and also a very grounded picture of what production AI infrastructure actually looks like, right? So next question would be for you, Anupam. AI infrastructure costs can grow fast. How do you keep the economics manageable as you scale up?
So the cost conversations in my mind, and I may say something controversial in here because it is a much debated topic, but in my view, it is really the cost conversation is really running backwards at the minute. a lot of people are focusing on the infrastructure costs, and the whole focus shifting there. um, there's hardly any focus going on the token consumption part, which earlier Sim had been talking about, right? The token consumption has gone really high because of how the AI has evolved, and we have moved into agentic AI space, where agentic AI solutions really consume probably around 20-30% more tokens in comparison to the traditional AI solutions that we used to see a few years back. And if I drill down further into it, that instead of organizations or the smarter clients that we see and we work with are the ones who have, instead of shifting all their focus on finding the cheaper tokens, they have started optimizing this token consumption and seeing how to better architect the solutions. And if I have to give 5 key takeaways, and by now you would see that I'm a very big fan of magic numbers. So if I give the 5 key takeaways to our listeners in there are few things which are in your control, which can help you optimize the economics, because we always say at KPMG that follow the money, and it will give you the answers to optimize the cost. And if 5 top key ones on my mind, if I have to give any AI engineer today, is one is optimize your output tokens. Your output token consumption really decides the cost numbers, and hits your cost quite a lot. And output tokens really, they cost you 3 to 8 times really higher than the input token. So optimize that solution. The second thing is, which Sim touched on, is the choose your models. You don't need to use complex models for every single task. Based on the complexity of your task, you should be actually building in your architecture this intelligent multi-model or intelligent model routing solution. So that, for example, people, I'm sure most of us in the panel, as well as the people who are watching us, they would be using Claude, for example. No, for every single task, you really do not go to Opus 4.7, because it is the best model, definitely, no doubt about it. But you do not go to Opus 4.7, otherwise you hit your daily limits very quickly. You choose between Haiku, you choose between Sonnet and Opus based on the complexity of your task. Same way, you should actually architect your enterprise solutions as well and build that intelligent model routing. So that's the second point. The third thing is hybrid infrastructure model. Do not quote me on that. I'm a very proud Amazonian. And at KPMG, being part of the cloud team, I love the cloud solutions. But I do say there is a lot of magic in here, in terms of this is one of the levers which we kind of oversee at times. But look at your workloads and see what needs to stay on-prem versus what needs to go in cloud, based on for example, if it is a very high volume, very highly predictable kind of a workload that you're dealing with, maybe it is better off in the on-prem channel. So do make that call based on your parameters that you are looking at for the workload. Fourth thing is, and that is a practical one, which we see very often while building the solutions, is when the teams can and come back and say that the leadership team has complained about all the tokens being used and the costs have gone really very high for the month. And the reason for that is those trivial things that we forget to dial up or down. And key thing is to build the circuit breaker embedded orchestration layer solution, so that in case, for example, your model does end up going in a loop. In the past, it was fine. If something goes in a loop, manually somebody would see there was not much of a business impact, or maybe there was a business impact, but not a cost implication. But in this case, in AI solutions, if something goes in a loop, it should actually be the circuit breaker should actually break it and send out a notification, so that there is a human interference or a human interjection to help you before all your tokens are burned. And the final message I would leave with the team here is that, as we say it in FinOps, it's not a one-time activity. You have to it's a continuous activity of improving and optimizing your cost. So keep attacking your cost at every single layer, by using semantic caching. There are various mechanisms available within AI architecture solutions as well. As we use semantic mechanisms or semantic caching, for example. We use the dynamic content or context pruning, for example, or whether it is your batch processing, what needs to go to the real time versus what needs to go to the batch. Even your chunking strategy, it may look simple. So how you choose your chunking strategy would also have an impact on your cost. So these are the 5 prime levers, I would say. The better architectural decision will always help you handle the economics in a better way. Follow the money.
Thanks, Anupam, for sharing your, best case scenarios within your enterprise. Inbar, at Lenovo, you're operating across enterprise-grade infrastructure globally. So just wanted to understand your viewpoints here. There's a difference between getting a model to work and getting an entire AI-powered workflow to work at scale. So can you explain the difference from your experience here?
Thank you. Yeah. So I think the big question that a test or a model can answer is, can it work? Right? So you're just doing the evaluation, the testing, the experimentation, which we covered in the previous round. But once you want to go and move to the next step of that, so an actual workflow, and I think Ahmed mentioned this as well, like when it's actually in a workflow is when you actually want it. So we're in production now, we're in a workflow. How do I see the difference here? And now we have to answer from the reliability perspective, can we depend on this workflow? And one of the big questions we have here, beyond cost, of course, which is always a big one, because if it's too expensive to run, then we're not really gaining the value of it. But beyond cost is failure. A testing experimentation, failing there, not expensive. You refine it, you do some more R&D, you do some more evaluations, you tweak some things, and then eventually you get something you like. But once you're already in a workflow and there's failure, that can have a huge cascading effect, upstream and downstream, right? Upstream, it can cause blockages and outages for things that no longer function and things start getting queued up. Downstream, it means that you can be sending wrong data, or as Anupam mentioned, getting into cycles and loops and causing additional costs, runaway cost problems. I think for me, one of the sentences I like to talk about here is that when you're experimenting, failure is loud, but when you're in production, failure is very quiet. And those are the things that are hard. It's hard to deal with that in a production environment. So baking in the right kind of, and I think Anupam mentioned as well, circuit breakers, right? Putting in points of failure, right? Points where you can observe that your workflow is in fact operating successfully, the right kind of telemetry, the right kind of observability that will detect not just that you're successful, but also when you are failing, because failure is inevitable, right? And it could be because of any number of reasons. I'm not going to go into the whole history of that, but when failure does happen, you have to be able to detect it and solve it quickly. And this goes back to my previous answer before of, can you operate it in production? Can you support it in production? And the only way to know that you can support it is what happens when a failure occurs. Are you going to just say, okay, let's go back to the drawing board, or can you iterate forward and while it's in production, keep pushing out fixes and keep maintaining your solution? And so if we go back to what the difference is between the two things, I think the difference is going to be that you don't have the luxury of failing in production. You have to already have that sort of resolved, not necessarily that you won't have failures, but that you have a plan for every failure. So it's effectively a risk assessment with mitigation plans in place, hopefully automated, hopefully with people's names attached to each one of those things, and with escalation paths and support policies.
Great. Thanks, Inbar, for that. Next question for Ahmed. Ahmed, you work in private banking, and data sovereignty and also regulatory compliance are real constraints, right? So the decision isn't just technical, it's probably about risk appetite and regulation. So how do you decide between running AI in the cloud versus on your own infrastructure, and what factors matter most here?
When it comes to on-prem versus cloud discussion, right, things change very fast. At some point, there was no way for you to run models on your local computers, for example, or maybe on your servers, you'll have to buy a bunch of GPUs and load up your servers for you to run such models, and RAM is another issue, right? So these are constraints that help you decide. That's one of the set of constraints, right? Like your are you able to procure things? Are you able to ready that? Spend that capex money to invest into such infrastructure, and how long will that infrastructure survive, right? These are one set of things we need to consider. The other thing is about the data sovereignty, right? Where every country has its own rule, privacy laws, and regulatory guidelines that you'll have to follow. In Singapore, we have the MAS guidelines. Sim was mentioning about the Canadian guidelines as well. So when it comes to your organization, especially banks, the most important thing is the privacy and the data sensitivity. The data, if it exits your company and goes to some server, can you trust that server, right? That trust is a major factor. You cannot just host somewhere and then send your data over to that place and expect them to protect your data as much as you would protect it, right? So that's where reputable companies like Google and AWS and Microsoft come in, and then they give you a private cloud kind of setup, which allows you to have a super secure connection from your on-premise servers to a cloud-based platform. And the other benefit that they provide is that they host the models in your country and allow you to keep the data within your country. So these are solutions available. But in terms of choosing, right, the choice between on-prem versus cloud, it really comes to the solution that you're building, right? So it could be a small thing where you just want to process a little document and then get some insights out of it. Do you really want to go to the cloud with that, right? I mean, it could be run on a normal computer, like the models are becoming smaller and smaller, and I'm able to run a quantized 2 gigabyte RAM using model on my old MacBook, right? It works. So it's a decision based on the solution that you're building, not really to say that I'm on the cloud, I'm using AI, right? So it's really like, it also goes back to the discussion which Sim brought up earlier about do you really need AI for such a thing, right? Like you can be deterministic about 80% of the times, and 20% of the times you are not able to be deterministic. That's when AI comes in. So all of these come into consideration when you choose between cloud versus on-prem. And I am a strong believer that we should be in a hybrid environment. And some of the solutions run locally on-prem within the organization. Highly sensitive solutions run within the organization, so the data never exits your premise. And low risk should go to some sort of a private cloud setting, so that and managed by reputable organizations, so that there is protection to your data and ownership on the other end as well, as much as you own your data, right? So yeah, that's so yeah, infrastructure should follow the value. It shouldn't be the other way around, right? What is the value you get?
Great. Thanks, Ahmed, for bringing that in. Laura, next question would be for you. You work across the sectors and geographies. When you roll out a new AI system, do you go all at once in stages, or what approach has worked best for you? I think this is something the audience here would love to understand. Yes.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for this question. So as you said, at Entity Data, we work across different geographies, different sectors. What we keep hearing from our customers is the transformation word has been overused over the next 5 to 10 years in consulting, especially. We always are on the next transformation, right? We have been working with our customers in changing the cloud technology, in adopting the latest tech with AI, with agentic. And now we start hearing from our customers a transformation fatigue. So customers and in general organizations are tired of changing, of transforming, of even the idea of change start to become overwhelming. Which is interesting. It's very fascinating what we're seeing. So when we do roll out a new AI system, we tend to go into stages, but not because it's not possible to do a big bang approach or a big transformation, but just because the world is shifting towards, let me have a little change, but I can stage it in small chunks. I also imagine like a big buffet of opportunities. If you allow me the analogy, loads of food on the table, you could do so many things. You will not want to have everything at once. You could, but you might regret it later. You get stomach pain. So I see it in a similar way. If you stage it, if you start with high value projects or high value use cases or contained use cases, those that we call lighthouses, that can bring the high value first, you will start bringing the people on board as well. So the change is not more an abrupt change, it's not a change for change's sake, but actually start bringing value first. Some people might call it quick wins. I start seeing the value first rather than winning fast. And then you can scale. So you can scale use cases, you can scale adoption by creating a reusable platform. But what you want to create as well is a pattern. So you want to recreate that pattern, which is not a one-off exercise, but something that can be repeatable, something, maybe a use case, a feature or a pattern of that use case that can be brought into another use case. So you can see that repeatability. And another thing, again, bringing the human back in the loop. So Anupam was mentioning this a few times in her answers. I do believe that building feedback loops early to refine the work, to refine the outputs before expanding is really beneficial. So human in the loop, but also feedback loops. So you can say to the AI, yes, that was great, or no, and then you can explain why. Because when it comes to rolling out AI systems, there is a lot of uncertainty for the users, for the human. Is this output correct? So what you can do, using the human in the loop, using the feedback loops to reinforce that knowledge, to correct that knowledge in case something has been going not going 100%, in case the agent hasn't picked up the right context that it resides often in people's mind, or is a tacit knowledge within the organization. So I would recommend change in small stages or in a planned stage, planned phase. It's always recommendable, but not because you can't transform everything at once, but because we've been coming to this transformation fatigue where everybody try to grab something rather than continuously looking for change.
Or I think stage rollout as risk management. That's a framing I think will stick with the people in this room today. So that was for round 3. We have covered why pilots fail and how production infrastructure works. Now comes the part that most organizations haven't thought through carefully enough, getting teams to actually adopt and embrace what's been built, right? So, sorry, we concluded round 2. We will go to round 3 now. We will pull up the poll number 3, Preetham. Let's see what the participants have to say. It's about who owns AI change management in your organization. Is it IT, engineering leads it, HR and people teams lead it, business unit leaders own it, or is it nobody really owns it, it's fragmented? I think this one will be interesting. Who actually owns AI change management in your organization right now? Let's hear it from the audience. All right, I think we are good to share the results. Nobody really owns it. I have 48, I think 50% of you have voted for that. I think this is a very critical finding, right? Because without clear ownership, change stalls every time. Sim, this round will be opened by you. You've driven adoption within your organization, right? So how do you get buy-in from who are skeptical about AI, especially when they worry it might change their roles?
Yeah, sure. Just going back to the poll, if nobody owns it, you're bracing for failure. Somebody has to own it, but in pockets. But anyway, going back to the question. So getting buy-ins is always complex, especially in enterprises, because nobody knows what will be the outcomes of a POC to a productionized system. So nobody really wants to own it. Everybody wants to have the success hat being worn, but really nobody wants to put their name to it. In terms of buy-in, I think getting buy-ins is always about managing the political theater across the organization and negotiating with the right conversations you have. You need to understand the person providing their buy-in very wisely in order to strike a meaningful conversation, understanding what makes their role successful. So if you use the same success metrics that that team uses and now overlay with your own case, then you will be able to start thinking in terms of benefiting from the buy-in. So if you're standing in front of a CISO, a chief information security officer, you don't talk to them about model architecture. No. Talk to them about data residency, encryption at rest, PII exposure, access control. Similarly, if you're talking to a CFO, you talk to them about cost avoidance, capital allocation, run rate, savings, efficiency and gains. If you're talking to a CRO, you talk about model risk management, explainability, audit trail. So it's the same platform, but different pitch depending on who's in that room at that very moment. Two, I think it's very important to bring their skin into the game as early as possible as co-authors in your design. And when that happens, co-authors never disapprove their own work. They happily sign off on them. So that's my recipe to follow and get buy-ins from teams and bring it from a 4-month to a 6 weeks buy-in and sign-off period.
Great. I'm just looking at the time. Maybe, I can skip a few questions here. So I will just pose my next question to Laura, because I think this one is pretty interesting from round 3 perspective. Are you seeing people in your organization using AI tools without official approval? How do you handle that balance between innovation and control?
Absolutely. Great question. I think shadow IT, it was a problem of the past, right? Now we have shadow AI that becomes something equally interesting, where people trying to do something which is either hard to get or too many approvals in on the way. They try to do it anyway. The fact is that since AI is now coming not just in our work, but in our day life, now everybody has access to ChatGPT or Claude within their own environment. That's when things start becoming interesting, because you might not be using AI for work, but you might using it for your personal life. But they're not exactly the same things. The type of questions that you ask on your personal life or your day-to-day productivity are completely different. It's the type of risks and the type of I would say also company risk, the reputational damage. That's what I was looking for. Reputational damage is what you are expose your company to, as well as if you have customers. And I work a lot with customers, entity data. We work with a variety of industries in the end-to-end world. We start seeing it, that shadow AI is no longer an option. However, it's demanding something. It's showing a signal. It's showing a signal that people really want to use AI. So I would say it's not a risk, but it's an opportunity to bring AI into a safe and secure environment. It's a way that your user is saying, I want to use AI. So instead of blocking it, instead of not allowing it, what we need to have in place across organizations is a way to apply for a license, apply for the right solution. But I would say don't block it. Provide a safe, approved alternative. So what we have at Entity Data, we have a series of alternatives that we can use. We have enterprise licenses for some of those tools. We have partnerships, but as well, when you provide access, you cannot just provide access. You need to combine clear guardrails with enablement and education. So you cannot just provide the tool to your employees. Yes, you need to attend a training, perhaps a couple of hours. You could attend a session, and you should also know how you could use that tool and why you should not use it for a certain reason, because it's a very powerful tool. You can get a lot out of it, but you should also know what not to use it for, what type of data you shouldn't leak into AI systems. So what shifted in terms of mindset in the shadow AI world is going from control, the shadow IT kind of proposition, into responsible empowerment. So I'm empowering my users to use it responsibly, and I want them to be very successful. I want to accelerate the usage across the organization, but I want them to feel responsible, empowered, as we were saying earlier, bringing those names into the right boxes, but make sure that we're not creating reputational damage, but we're creating an opportunity to do better work and be more creative with our work as well.
Right. Thanks, Laura, for that. So I'd like to move on to the next round, where we want to talk about running AI in production day to day, right? So we will be talking about the unglamorous and critically important work of keeping AI working in the real world every day. So quickly posing my question to Inbar here. Once AI is live in production, what does the day-to-day look like for you and your organization? Who's monitoring it, and what are they watching for?
Thank you. So, as any system, you have to be observing the fundamentals. You can't ignore the fact that it is a system in production. So you have all the basic reliability and observability metrics that you're always going to observe. I'm not going to go into the full breakdown of that because this focuses on AI, but your system needs to be stable beyond it just being an AI system. That's the first basic. If users can't even access it and approach it and be dependable on it, then whatever it may do as an AI system is irrelevant. So once you have all of those things in place and you're able to guarantee, asterisks on that word guarantee, you're able to sufficiently provide usability with the product, then we start focusing on how do you measure the AI reliability of something. Here, I can't go into specifics of how Lenovo are doing it specifically, but generally you would want to make sure the user's trust is preserved. You don't want to have users using a product and then being frustrated because it is misunderstanding you or providing hallucinations. So you have to have a way to monitor that the product of the AI, the result of interacting with AI, is matching the user's expectations. This comes back to some fundamentals of reliability, which is SLOs, right? So we have to understand that the objective, right, of our service is to meet our customers' expectations. Customers expect things to work. They expect things to work reliably. They expect to get the answers they want, and we have to be able to monitor that. And when it's not doing such a thing, we have to be able to correct that. So we have to develop different ways of detecting those signals, different ways of being able to and I'll use some terms that maybe that are a bit more technical. So like some form of feature flagging, some form of levers or toggles that we can use in the system to modify the way it's running in production. Usually you want this to be done automatically. You want different algorithms to be detecting this live and being able to understand how to navigate traffic or modify requests, adapt the ingestion paths just in order to make sure that the customers are getting a prime experience and not a degraded experience. In some cases, it is preferable for a customer to be routed to, for example, less powerful models or less, let's call them robust models, in order to get a consistent and reliable experience, rather than route them to some of the more interesting models, but the experience could be less predictable, less dependable. And so we have to have a way to do that. So this comes, of course, back to a lot of other factors like cost as well. We don't want to have a single user request costing us 10% of our yearly, budget. And so we also have to make sure that we are leveraging that correctly. So this is a big part of observing reliability in production and being able to support it in production, is making sure that our customers' experience is met. And I say customer, that can be a consumer, that could be an enterprise, that could be an internal engineer, anyone using an AI system and that is supposed to be depending on that AI system, that should be considered production. My definition of production usually is if it doesn't work and somebody gets upset about it, that's production. So if we have anyone from an internal engineer testing something to a consumer that's paying us fees to use this, it has to be dependable and it has to be observable and be able to be managed in such a way that any um, any any expectation is met. And that is starting from the trust and all the way to the result and the experience that the user gets there. Those are some of the very important things that we think about. I could go on this subject for a long time, but in the interest of time, I'll stop there. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Enver, for your inputs here. Emmet, with your expertise in data engineering and automation means, you have a grounded view of operational costs. So let's talk about that. The cost of maintaining AI after deployment, monitoring, retaining, handling issues can, surprise people. How do you plan for that from the beginning?
You have to treat AI like any traditional software system or any product that you have, right? The thing about most people is that they think AI is just a project, but it's not. Once you build something, it becomes a product. And when it comes to product, there has to be enhancements. And enhancements come in the form of retraining the AI or the model, or maybe changing your system prompts, or maybe improving your system prompts. That could be data drift. Some data that you cleaned and you set up, the data that flows after the cleaning was done, it's coming dirty, and you have to go back and fix it, right? So it's never done when it comes to any AI solution that you build, right? So you have to treat it like a product, and you have to keep improving the product, just like you would do any traditional software. Treat it like software, right? Yeah, I'll keep it short. Thanks.
Thanks. That was very crisp, Ahmed. We'll now transition to our final round where we talk about scaling AI across the organization, right? From isolated deployments to enterprise-wide AI capability. So I think to this day, very few organizations have truly scaled AI, right? Most have a handful of successful deployments surrounded by a graveyard of stalled projects, like I was discussing in the beginning as well. So, the first question I would like to ask is to you, Anupam. Very few organizations have scaled AI across the entire enterprise. What do you think separates those who scale from those who get stuck in pilot mode?
I think again a very interesting question, and it's it's with AI we are seeing as if we are watching or rewatching a movie. We have seen it with every single technology wave. When internet came into picture, uh, we kind of used that opportunity to convert that entire thing, entire journey that existed in the physical world. We moved it to digital world, and we carried through the inefficiency of a physical world into our digital world, which became difficult to fix then. We saw the same wave around 10 years back when cloud came into picture, 10, 12 years back, where again we had companies and businesses who kept experimenting about things, and then they realized that they were really tailing behind in terms of their progress. And then there was a sudden rush of again moving from on-premise to cloud, and there were a heavy lift and shift that was being done, no modernization. And then people complained and talked about that they are not getting full value out of cloud, for example. And with AI as well, we are kind of seeing a similar theme. We are trying to correct as many clients as we can because we are really working on large scale transformation journeys for our clients. The good thing about this is that our clients are now courageous, and they are the engagements or the kind of connects that we are having with our clients is they're not talking about one or two use cases here and there or one particular function, etc. They are just saying that we want to become AI native kind of a company for us to stay relevant in the market, because we know the 6 months down the line or a year down the line, things will change. Whether it is a retail firm or whether it is even a global trading firm, we are getting the same kind of request from all these clients. And now coming back to the main point of saying that if I have to give you three key takeaways of saying why it fails to move from a very few organization actually succeed versus others, and what separates them, I would say it's again back to the don't bolt an AI solution on top of the existing workflows. So I would say three things to take away is really the first thing is do not treat it like a technology project. It is a business transformation. You are going to change business. Your business model is completely going to change. Your products are going to become irrelevant because things that were required earlier with the agentic AI intelligence coming into picture, 6 months down the line, it will be completely different ecosystem that will be operating in. We have seen it with the likes of different models that keep getting uh, published or made available to the public, right? So that is one thing. Treat it like a business transformation program. Combine it with the business strategy. Otherwise, it will be another technology stack. You will not even understand what AI can do for you, so you will not get the value. The second thing is again, I go back to this saying that it AI solutions and for any business, any company to gain value from AI implementation, you need an operating model because AI changes your workflows. AI changes how you operate. It requires a change in your entire operating model, whether it is your people, your structure, because as you start automating more, we're starting small incrementally, to Laura's point earlier, that we are starting incrementally, and there is a value in doing it incrementally. But the if you see more and more the workloads start getting automated, more we go towards the automation side of things, our workforce will need to be deployed somewhere else for high task values tasks, which would mean that you need workforce skilling, you need different kind of a structure, you need a more efficient structure. How the agents and the humans together drive business value for you in an enterprise requires an operating model change. And it does come along with every single AI release that happens is a change event in itself. So you need all the change and activities to happen. The third point, if I can share with you, is a lot of our clients we see, they have been experimenting for long, 1 year, 2 year. They are all coming back and saying that we need some help. We want to partner and we want to do it. So the third theme here is really do not try to do it alone by yourself, because there is a lot of time that you lose in addition to the cost and money, etc. You're losing on the time. For you to be able to get that leapfrog moment, rely on the right partnership. And For example, if I talk about my firm, at KPMG, we have invested multi-billion, I'm saying multi-billion, not even $1 million, in AI, just to make sure that we are not experimenting with the client. We are doing a transformation. We have been doing this transformation internally within our organization, service line by service line, really, and automating the huge all end-to-end business workflows. So we have done it to ourselves. We are taking with us these learnings, these accelerators, because that's what the clients relies on us. So do not keep experimenting by yourself. Partner with the right partners to get that leapfrog moment, because time is running fast. And I will leave with you one final quote in there saying that I'm very, very fond of quotes. But for me, I'm a huge fan of Peter Drucker, who said that the greatest danger in the time of turbulence is not the turbulence itself. It's actually trying to act on it with the yesterday's logic. And that's what I see the clients are trying to do, which is really trying to solve a different problem, different technology, comparing it to other technologies that came along. There was Java, there was .NET, then there came cloud. Every technology that came in, AI has a very different potential altogether. AI is here to do and replicate something which humans do. How far we evolved, we have done a lot. We have seen a lot of progress in the last 1 year. So there is a lot to be done. It's just that you need to get the right Lego blocks in place. So business value, technology implementation, operating model, and the right partnership really will help. Thank you.
Thanks, Anupam, for that very distinctive views. And also we love the key takeaways you always share when you're, sharing your experiences. Sim, do you have a repeatable checklist or a playbook for deploying AI? What are the must-have items on it?
Yes, I can share my playbook that I always use for deploying AI, and this goes back to the same the same topic about cost. What I basically focus is always start with the business goal and not a technology one. Not an AI objective, a business outcome, which is related to revenue, risk, cost, throughput. And if you cannot name the goal that your senior stakeholder is accountable for before the first model steps into production, you don't have a strategy. You have a budget which is looking for a purpose, and you are bound to fail. So you always have to start with the business. Technology will keep changing, tools will keep changing. That doesn't mean you don't learn tools. You should learn tools, you should learn technology. But technology and AI are enablers to solve the business problem. So you always have to keep business at the epicenter. That's one. Two, when you know that you are focused on business problems, you should ask business, what are some problems that you wanted to solve yesterday? That becomes your P1. What problems does business want to solve tomorrow? That's perhaps not even P2, P3, P4, because P2 is now getting it work with reusable patterns, with the telemetry like Laura and Inbar said, right? Those have to work. And then what they want to solve tomorrow is P3 and P4. So you question them, why do you want me to do this? Map the what and the why to the success metrics. Gather information, jot it down, but don't share this with business because you're still trying to figure it out. Ask, how will you measure AI success? Come back to your desk, revisit the success metrics that you jotted down, and cross-verify the notes, amend, calibrate, and write KPIs now you will track, whether you are in AI platform engineering, reliability, data science, data engineering, AI engineering, doesn't matter. The fundamentals still stay the same. So you write the KPIs you will track. And then you still don't go to how. You don't go to the execution mode. Now you build a tech strategy. You first find What is the easiest feature of the use case that you can solve? No conceptual theory or jazz. Actual feature which solves a problem. Then you gather insights, data, requirements, documentation. This becomes your context. Think how raw information can be calibrated for a machine to understand, which goes back to what Anubhav was saying. Don't try to solve technology problems with the yesterday thinking. The machine needs to understand the context. So you have to process the data in a format which is compressed and natively easy to understand by a model. I choose JSON. JSON because models are trained on JSON structure code. Then 4, you document your findings. If it's a RAG solution, think about re-ranking and cross-encoding. You shouldn't be just following somebody blindly because if they are using a KNN for a solution or a cosine similarity, that does not mean that's how RAG is to be done. 5, most importantly, even before all these, you have to build a scaffolding. So you have to have your API contracts in place, your Python SDKs, your routing models, model registry, your data flow to process streaming and batch data with flattened schemas. Then you test your infrastructure, use it as a harness. And that's where the harness engineering term also got coined. And now people are adopting as a core mandate, not just as a good to have item. And then you hire the right mindset people, the right attitude. Sheer motivation will drive the outcome, not hype, not just because I want to do this. I have people working in my team. I have a 150 people team, and they want to just lay their hands on agentic. And I asked them saying, can you solve a problem using GitHub Copilot because it also has a large language model sitting behind? If your prompt cannot solve the problem, then most likely a non-deterministic, probabilistic, auto-regressive transform model will not be giving you the outcomes. You rather write Python code to solve it, right? Once you have this team with the right mindset and the motivation, not connected with hype or emotional context, you partner with them on a daily basis, evaluate progress and document your learnings. And then you capture your production efficiencies within your own group. Once it is successful with the right partners, because the wrong partners can also bring you down. You have to choose the right partners who are going to be advocates for you to make you successful. And then you publicize to the wider group within the enterprise about the working model that you adopted. Then you start talking to other business teams in the bank, in the organization. You exercise the same story. And that's how you compound return on equity, return on intelligence, instead of compounding on technical debt. So the shift is, in summary, a very methodological approach and not the anxiety. So you should always think about adding value, not agent debt, because agents will hallucinate, but value will scream numbers. That's my playbook.
Great, thanks, Sim. I think that was a very high level, playbook shared by you. I suspect, a lot of the people here will be asking you more questions after this session. So I think since we are running a bit late with time and the participants also want to ask a lot of questions to the panel here, I would like to close this session with Inbar you. So the last question would be, if most AI deployment failures are organizational rather than technical, should we be investing more in change leaders than in engineers? Let's close the panel discussion with your answer here.
So unfortunately, my answer is going to be it's not either or, right? You can't do both. It depends on where you are in the journey. Early on, it's going to be technical, right? That's going to be the biggest challenges. But in order to get to the level of scale and the wonderful playbook that Sim just shared, you get to these high scale, high intensity situations. It's going to be organizational. It's going to be what decisions are made in the org in order to support the scaling of AI systems. How is it being supported in terms of not just resources, but also in terms of what sort of backing you get when you're against the wall, right? Are they going to go to bat for you, or are they going to not go to bat for you, right? It's easy to say we have an engineering team, we have an engineering solution, it's using AI, but when push comes to shove, and you've pushed it as far as you can with scale, and now the business unit is not meeting its KPIs or not addressing things because the system, the organization around it has not supported that towards success, then it doesn't matter how much engineering you've done, you're going to fail. So you need to have an organization that wants to use AI in its solution space and not just sees it as a quick win in order to get, to the next quarter or the next year, or to make the engineering team happy, or, sometimes, this is controversial, but a lot of times the business leaders aren't fully aware of the implications of what it means to have the AI, and are just listening to AI engineers or engineering teams who are having a love affair with AI, and they're just, green lighting and signing off on the approvals, and then down the line they see, well, this is actually a big mistake. So we need to have an organization that wants to support AI and wants to see it succeed. You can't just have only engineering, but it depends on where you are in the journey, right? Without the engineering, of course, you're not going to succeed. So an org needs to see where it is on the journey and determine what leaders it needs and what structure it needs based on where it is on the journey. And that journey is going to be from both directions, both from the solution itself, what is the AI that I'm solving right now, and from the business itself, what value am I trying to get? What are my objectives? What are the outcomes I'm looking for? So from both those directions, you have to be able to answer these questions, understand where your maturity is in terms of AI, but also as an organization in general, you don't want to be making mistakes that will cost you later. That's a general a general thing organizations always want to do, is avoid mistakes as a risk assessment. So AI is not different in that regard. And so you have to make sure that not only are you technically able to accomplish this, but that the system wants to support you. And where you are on the journey depends which one's more important. So I would say that for most of the audience here who are getting their legs in the journey now, it's going to be a lot of engineering work, a lot of engineering support, but they can't ignore that longer term sustainability of having a organization that wants to support them. So Sim mentioned some very good ways to get those stakeholders on board with you, building those relationships, understanding their needs. I think that's important to do from day one, but it's not the most important thing. You need to actually have an engineering solution. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you, Inbar. Thank you to the entire panel. I think we had a very crisp panel discussion. We were able to cover most of the major topics that, people are talking about while wanting to deploy AI within their enterprises. I think before we go to the Q&A, I would love to do one last poll here just to understand, some takeaways probably from the audience here. So, Preetham, if you can pull up the last poll, I think it should be number 6. For everyone here, after this session, what's one thing you're committing to change? A, define a clear path from pilot to production for one project, fix our change management ownership gap, establish proper AI monitoring and operations process, build or document our deployment playbook. All right, I think we are good to share the results. A little bit of mixed responses here, but yes, lovely to have everyone here participating. Now, I think this is the chance for you all to ask questions to our AI leaders here. They'd be happy to answer whatever is on your mind. Preetham, I would like to hand over the time to you now. Yeah, thank you.
Yes. Thank you so much, Asan. Thank you very much for moderating the session wonderfully. And thank you, everyone. That was a really insightful discussion with lots of practical takeaways. So thank you so much. And as we are moving into the question answer session, so I would like to ask first question. Here we have got it from Maria. As enterprises move towards Gen AI adoption, how do you balance speed of deployment with governance, risk, and compliance especially in highly regulated industries?
Yeah, sure, I can take that one. So that's a very nice question, and thank you for the question. Highly regulated industries, that's where I've been, that's where I spend all my time. So I can definitely resonate and see where you're coming from. To keep it short, I think you have to have a very balanced platform in order to first put your agentic solutions in production. You have to have, this goes back to what all speakers said here today, is you need to have a platform with shared assets, which can be used for repeated use cases that Laura said. Very important. If the platform does not support reusability, it could be RAG as a service, as simple as it can get. The platform has to be built in a way where every team within the organization taps to a common API contract, which then bifurcates to a large language model gateway. Through the large language model gateway, then you tap into the model registry where you only have 3 to 4 models. You don't need 100 models. Those models will then decide on the context you give, which has to then derive the streaming of events to throw logs for the LLM calls that you make. You also have to observe the rate at which you're consuming tokens, which has to be kept for every team, and the cost that you will incur. Until you don't have the scaffolding built, it's going to be very difficult for organizations to really scale. Otherwise, you will have 200 requests sitting on the desk of a chief risk officer, and he's not going to approve anything in a regulated environment. So you need to have a scaffolding built, which is in the form of platform engineering, which should be a non-negotiable asset for any AI organization in a regulated environment. That just helps you speed up your security and risk sign-offs, and then you bring the stakeholders into the game saying, I'm using a very repeatable pattern, which you've already signed off. You are now signing up for victory. Otherwise, you're bracing for impact. I think that's the strategy of operating a regulated environment.
Thank you very much, Sim, for a very detailed explanation. I hope Maria has got her answer. And there's another question that we have got from John through our live platform. He's asking, when scaling AI across the enterprise, how do you define the major ROI beyond cost saving, especially in areas like customer experience or decision intelligence?
I could take that one, if it's okay. I think return on investment is one of the main things that we've been talking about in the last couple of months, at least. Return on investment, we put an investment in, and we want to see an investment. We want to see the money coming back. With AI, I think you have a mixture of investing as well as innovation. So I would say you should treat your AI deployment as a little bit of R&D. So you are investing, but you're not necessarily expecting that money back in the immediate term. So you need to think you are investing and the return will come maybe after 6-12 months. Once you bring those POC into production, once you start scaling, you will start to see the return on investment. In terms of what else you should look at, and you don't want to just create tech debt, as you were saying, some of your comments were earlier. You don't just want to create tech debt, but you want to create value. So one of the things I would say is, how can you measure value? How can you measure adoption of your AI use cases? When it comes with customer experience or decision intelligence, you want to see the return on employee or return on customers. So what are you bringing into the value chain, onto your value for your customers, for your employees, that are improving the customer experience, are improving the employee experience? Are we getting a better response rate? Are we getting a better employee engagement? Are we getting a better customer engagement? with using AI or any sort of technology, any sort of enhancement, improvement of the way that we're doing things today, how can we measure things that we're doing, as Sim was saying, tomorrow, or things that we should have done yesterday, but we should have done better? Rather than only think about the return on investment in the immediate term, we need to think more on return on value and the value that we are creating with technology. I think it will have a much larger impact, and it will have a economic impact as well, but it will change the way that we work, that we live, that we operate, and we should look at those metrics as well.
Thank you so much, Laura, for answering it very well. And I would like to inform all the participants that we are quite running out of schedule time. I can see a lot of questions we are getting across live. So it's amazing to see we are getting a lot of engagement across live platforms as well. So thank you so much, everyone. If you want to reach out to our panelists, I have already shared the LinkedIn profile link in the chat box. So feel free to reach out to them in case if you have any further questions or anything that you want to discuss regarding today's panel session discussion. So thank you so much, everyone, for attending today's session, and dear participants, thank you very much for asking such a wonderful questions. We'll look forward to have more panel sessions ahead. And dear panelists, before I take the closing further, we would love to hear final thoughts from all of you. So we can start with Laura.
Oh, it was an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for inviting me. And there were so many good questions and discussions. I think we created a really good atmosphere, and the audience has been incredible. The time has flown by. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Laura, for sharing your thoughts. Ahmad, we would love to hear thoughts from you.
Thank you for inviting to the panel, and great discussions that we have had all around. I think there was everyone was talking about I'm going to take things from pilot to production, right? So that was one of the highest rated poll answers. So I would like to say something about that, right? So AI doesn't fail in pilots because of models. Right. And if you want to take away one thing from this session, that should be it, right? It fails because everything around it fails, right? The model doesn't fail by itself because you set it up for failure. That's why the model fails. Just like if you gave the wrong tools to your employees will fail. If you give the wrong tools to the AI will fail. So give the right context, give the right develop the system prompt right, and develop your workflow right, and embed it right into your workflow. That's how you take it to production. Yeah, thanks.
Very thoughtful. Thank you so much, Ahmad, for sharing your thoughts. Same thing. We would love to hear final thoughts from you as well.
Yeah, no, I'll keep it short. I think it's been a wonderful, insightful experience for all of us, and I definitely have learned a lot from all the panelists here, I would say. So thank you, panelists, for sharing your valuable experience across different organizations and experiences. And thank you for the wonderful questions as well from participants. And yeah, happy to answer any questions offline if there are any. And thanks for having me here. So yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Singh. Yes, Anupam.
No, I just want to thank you, Animasa, and the entire panel and everybody who attended. 1.5 hour, very well invested. I would definitely say, what a great panel to become part of. Very different perspectives. We covered probably a 360-degree view of the questions that was created and that you guys covered as well. This is really amazing. So it does take from pilot to production, even in terms of the questions that got answered. So no, it was great having being a part of this one. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Anupam. Yes, Invar, we would love to hear final thoughts from you as well.
Thank you. So I think my final thought in how AI is from pilot to production, how you deploy it, would be when you look at it in isolation, you're gonna see different things than when you look at it in a system. And the way to get something to production is to see it as a system. It's not just an AI solution, it's part of your business. It has impact on customers. It has impact on your employees. It has all these other things around it. So just don't lose the forest for the trees. I think that's the takeaway here.
Absolutely wonderful. Thank you, everyone, for sharing such a wonderful thoughts with us and for insightful discussion today. We'll look forward to have you join for another panel discussions because I believe the 90-minute wasn't enough to discuss everything, right? So we'll definitely look forward to schedule more panel discussions with you all. So thank you so much, everyone. And I would like to request Asang, do you have any closing note for participants? Please do share.
Yes, I think it was really lovely to moderate the entire panel discussion. There were a lot of questions answered, and of course, there were a lot of questions that were not answered because of the time, but really looking forward. And please do not forget, this is something that we are covering for the entire ecosystem of adopting AI within your enterprises. Last week, we had value. Today, we had deploy. The next week on Wednesday, same time, we will also be discussing on orchestrate, followed by upskill and govern. So I request even the panelists here, please join and be part of this panel discussion. A lot of learning to come across. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Asam. And to add on to that, you can use the same registration link, and this is happening on the same time slot. So set a reminders for yourself that you won't miss the upcoming insightful panel discussions. So thank you, everyone. I'll be quickly sharing my slide where I do have some great announcement for all our participants here. So this is regarding the today's featured session we had on. So we do have notifications for all of you. So you can go for AI Foundations, AI Tool Mastery and Agentic AI Domain Specialist, AI Strategic Integrated, AI Guardian, and AI Change Evangelist. We have all these listed certifications are now available in the GSDC. Get in touch with the learning advisors to get more information and further assistance with all of this certification program. Also, you can use the promo code that we are currently providing for our attendees, where you will be getting 20% discount on any of this listed certification program. You will find all the offer details in the chat box itself. And a quick introduction to the GSDC AI Studio, a platform where we are providing 100 plus live sessions on AI, which is led by global experts, where you'll be getting 4 daily sessions, which is 45 minutes of live impactful sessions, along with the hands-on learning, where you can apply all the concepts immediately that you have learned. And also, in case if you get any questions or doubts, that will be resolved instantly with the help of our subject matter experts. So this training is aligned with the industry standards for the job ready skills. So I believe this is an amazing opportunity to learn from the AI leaders around the globe. So if you want further information regarding the GSTC AI Studio or wondering how you can access to this, please get in touch with the learning advisors. You will find their contact details in the chat box. And I would like to inform you all that GSTC is going to introduce the GSTC Spotlight of the Week. So we believe learning should be shared, not just attended. That's why we recognize participants who post their key takeaways, key learnings, learning experiences, and their learning stories that inspires others. So please tag us on LinkedIn or use hashtags, which is Learn with GSTC or hashtag GSTC Impact. So that professional who will be the spotlight of the week will be getting a live shout out featured in the session spotlight. GSTC will reshare their post across all our social platforms to get visibility, and your insight that will be showcased across all our social platforms and all our attendees. So please share your experiences and tag GSTC. So get recognized and be the spotlight of the week. We'll be announcing the spotlight of the week by Friday itself. And thank you so much, everyone, for being a part of this today's panel discussion. We look forward to have you all join for the upcoming panel discussion, which is happening next Wednesday, 29th April, with the same time slot. You can use the same registration link. Looking forward to you all to have for the upcoming panels. Thank you so much, everyone. Take care. Keep learning. Bye-bye.